Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of the Blacklist. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I like that little thing at the beginning with Reddington and Liz, because it's like, oh, not only does she know about Ilya, because obviously she shows up at Ilya's place, but oh, they're already gone. But then, like, the PI is there. I'm like, what's going on here? We know Reddington found you out. It's like, oh no, she's technically working for Reddington now to a certain extent. She basically hid Ilya and his wife to hide them from Liz. And so she's like, yeah, but I'm trying to understand the fact that she's like, you're saying that you just want to question him, but this is a man that's running for his life. Why is that? You know? So, and then Liz was like, yeah, that is a question, because she doesn't know why either. But nevertheless, Reddington's there talking to Liz after the fact, because, Dembe was like, why don't you ask her? She's waiting in the park for you. Because obviously Liz needs his help with the case that she actually brings to him. But Reddington's like, yeah, I'm glad to see we're on the same side. No more lies and deception between us. And it's just like, oh. And he could just straight up ask Liz, but to be fair, since this is concerning Katerina, she would never tell him the truth anyway. So for Reddington, it's always, a game of chess. Always got to think about like two moves ahead, or rather you can make it seem like everyone else is playing checkers while he's playing chess type of situation. But regardless, the fact is, this actually deals with a cold case of Liz's called I think what's his name, like the Boneyard Killer. Like basically he dumps bodies of his victims just like people who were recently buried. He like basically buries his victims on top of these bodies. Like they're people that are unrelated. It's just like, oh, this grave just happens to be dug up recently. Oh, I'm gonna put one of my victims there. It was a really interesting reveal because I love how they went about the case, because obviously we got introduced to Angelica at the beginning of the episode, played by the actress's name is Gus Burney, which I think is funny because I immediately think of Gus and Bernie from Rooster Teeth is where my mind immediately goes to. She's popped up in stuff. One of the things I best know her from was on the sadly short-lived TV show The Mist. She was one of the main characters in that. She's also popped up in other stuff too, but that's like the thing I kind of like know her like consistently from. But nevertheless, basically we had that whole thing there, but then we see like the dead bodies and stuff. I'm like, I'm not getting this. I'm like, what's the correlation between these bodies he's found? Because at first I was thinking like, oh, does he kill people? Like he was taking a picture and everything. I was like, oh, do you go after specific people? Like, are you targeting people, but you're making their deaths look like accidents or something like that because it looked like a plane crash or something? So that's what I was trying to understand. But then slowly but surely over the course of the episode, we kind of understand, like, find out about him and his victims. Like, apparently, like, the women that died were prostitutes, sex workers, and they were murdered. But also, like, they, prior to dying, had just given birth. And it's like, wait, what's this all about? It turns out this dude, his name is, Niles Hatcher. Interesting enough, I was trying to recognize what I knew the actor from. It's Rectify. He's one of the bad dudes involved with everything in the show Rectify. One place, it's a good show. If you're looking for something kind of drama-ish, it's a really good drama. You can find at least 4 seasons on Netflix. I don't know if that's all there is to it. It's not a Netflix show. It's regardless, tangent and all that. But I know him from that. But nevertheless, basically, he's taking dead men, stealing their semen, because Wrestler and Liz had explained this to Cooper later on. He's basically taking their semen and inseminating these young women, sex workers. Basically, they blackmail the families because it's like, oh, this is a scandal that will ruin these deceased men's reputation and name. So the new widowed wives will be like, all right, do whatever we need to, pay whatever we need to kind of keep this hush-hush, sign some NDAs and stuff like that. But then eventually Niles will kill the women. And so obviously, we see at the end, like, Angelica was kind of, was it Angelica or was it Angela? I'm blanking now. Gus Burney's character. We'll leave it at that, because I've been saying it the entire time, but I'm like, I'm confusing it. Is it Angela or is it Angelica? I don't remember. It might have been Angela. I'm terrible with names. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But nevertheless, her character wanted to keep the baby, and he's like, oh, no, it's fine. And it's like, oh, we're going to take, I'm going to find you a home. And so basically saying like, oh, like this baby isn't going to be having a good home with you type of situation. And so he proceeds to kind of bury her. Luckily, they were able to track her phone, and luckily the FBI showed up in time. And at first he's still being like, oh, I have no idea. It's like, you're caught, but you're still not going to let them save her. You're just going to let her die, which is kind of shitty. But it's crazy to think that like it all blew up into this scam and everything. I even love Aram being like, so what's this kind of wrinkle in the whole birds and the bees situation? And you have Liz kind of like sighing and then looking at Cooper, and Cooper's like, well, if you're going to tell him, go ahead and tell him, because they literally just went through how it all worked, and now they have to bring Aram up to speed. But what was really interesting is what basically his justification for it. He's like a bad guy he's one of those, once again, no one thinks they're the villain in their own story. For him, it's like, oh, I'm a mortician and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. He belongs to like, what was it? D-Mort, basically disaster morticians. Like morticians from certain regions get gathered when like a disaster happens to kind of identify bodies and stuff like that. I'm assuming, I mean, not unless that's complete BS, but I just kind of get the feeling like that's a real thing or something. It's like, I never knew that was a thing. I mean, like I said, it could just be something they made up for the show, but it's an interesting concept of, I think, like the D-Mort situation. Regardless, his whole thing is about like, oh, he's literally experienced so much death because as a mortician, all you see is death and it just kind of takes a toll on you. But for him, at first he wanted to find something kind of some light in life. So it's like at first it's about, oh, I'm making money. Fact of the matter is I'm taking from the rich. So it's, it's not like I'm really hurting these people with the amount of money I'm taking from them. They've got plenty. But then also he picked people that wouldn't be missed. These are women. I'm actually, by killing them, I'm saving them from the horrible lives that they came from. And just like his justification from it is crazy. But then Liz kept asking, where are the kids? Because at first you're like, yeah, did you drop them off at the fire station? But even like some of the ladies decided to. And he was like, even some of them try to, obviously keep the baby and stuff like that. He's like, yeah, it's crazy for them to try. Like even calling them crazy for attempting is because of their lifestyle and who they are. And the fact is, look at you trying to try to keep a child. Like, oh, considering how, I think it's for him, it's like, oh, their lives are so destructive and such a mess. They're going to bring a child up in that. But basically it turns out he's been, any children, he's been raising them as his own. So the effed up thing is, and even Wrestler says it later on, we're dealing with a serial killer with a conscience because he does such terrible, deplorable things, yet at the same time, he's a loving father. He talks about the fact that these children, they're his life, they brought life back, and he was dead before, but they brought me back to life. It's like, that, how do you compensate with that duality of like being a loving father who brought all these children in, but the effed up way they came out in this world, and the fact is that you're killing their mothers. It's like, Liz is like, we're going to have to tell them the truth. He was like, you don't have to tell them anything. And it's just kind of like, geez, that's a rough situation. Obviously, some of the children are going to like whatever family's going to take them, whether it's like a family related to the dead men, the rich dead men that are killed, or whether it's people in a case of like, hey, I'm like that woman at the end. She's like the grandmother of one of the victims. She's the mother of one of the victims, making the child her grandchild. So it's like, if someone from one side of the family going to take care of the kid, but it's like, also got to let them know, because there's like that woman who thought her husband had an affair, but she was keeping it hush hush because he was like, the sales of the books, because he was an author, depended on like him coming from like a good faithful relationship, and but it turns out obviously like all these happen like after they died, because like I said, he'd steal the sperm, because apparently sperm is good for 36 hours after someone dies. So some little science biology stuff we're learning along the way, so that was kind of interesting. But also at the end, Gus Vernie's character gets to keep her baby. It's like, I guess she got arrested because it's like, well, she was part of an extortion plan and stuff like that. So I guess it's like you still get jail time for that and stuff like that. So fraud / extortion, all that type of stuff. But it's just kind of a crazy turn of events in the case of like, I did not expect that case, because like I said, it was constantly evolving. Like, where is this going? What does this all mean? And it turns out that's what that is. So that's incredible. At the same time, there's the whole situation with Dinbei Zaman, basically, like he had some people at his, the FBI was questioning some of the people at the mosque, because wondering, it was in particular, it was like the FBI's like counter-terrorist unit and stuff like that. And so the fact of the matter is, he wants Reddington to look into it, because Dinbei's like, yeah, he knows about the task force. He's like, oh, does he? And it's like, yeah, it's also nice to see, obviously, like Denbei does have his confidants, because his Amon is someone that he's talked to plenty of times in the past about everything, the complications of working for someone like Reddington, the debt he owes him, but also the stuff that he's had to do for Reddington to protect Reddington too. So it's always been that complication, but his Amon has always been kind of his guide, and everything. So they go to Harold about it, and Harold looks into it, but it's like at one point he was like, "Oh, tell Reddington like we shouldn't remind him that we're the ones that should be handling this type of stuff." And Liz is like, "Oh, he knows, he just doesn't care." But nevertheless, it makes it seem like some of the people within his flock are potentially because they're looking into like I guess like a terrorist group and one guy in particular, and they're thinking like, oh, maybe like at first like his Amon eventually gets kidnapped, and it's like, okay, so maybe did the FBI do this, or was it some group connected to this very bad terrorist guy who found out like, oh, Amon must have been talking to them, so we're gonna like that group wants to snatch him up because they think he was talking to the FBI and stuff like that. But even that takes a twist, because it turns out like the guy they were going after, the guys in particular, like it turns out they're not terrorists. They're actually rescuing refugees from said terrorists that the FBI counter-terrorist unit was looking into. So it's like they kind of missed the mark on this, like because there was like ship stuff being shipped across, and they were wondering if it was like weapons and stuff like that. It was people saving them from said bad guy, So it turns out Amon's kidnapping had nothing to do with it, and even Reddington talking to Liz later on, it's like, yeah, that this is all kind of he know that Denbei blames him, which Liz is like, no, he doesn't. And it's like, yeah, he does, because this is about me, because Amon got targeted because of his connection to me. It was like, but he doesn't have a connection to you. And it's like, yes, but he has a connection to Denbei, who has a connection to me. So this was a strike against Denbei to make a strike against him, so that this is what this is about. And the moment that came out, I was like, the only other person that'd be coming after you like this around this time, Katarina, totally turns out to be her, because it's like, she's not going to be able to get anyone else easily, but he's close enough to Reddington for her to use to kind of pump out for information, I guess, to kind of know how to strike, potentially because he knows a lot about Denbei, so he can be used as a weakness to Denbei, which can be used, and Denbei can be used as a means of going after Reddington. So, and that's a sad thing too, because you feel bad at first, because you're like, we're talking about her going above, like, who knows what she's going to do to him. I mean, we saw what she did to Ilya. That was her friend, So, I mean, this is all about self-preservation, but plus that was like a shit ton of history between them. It's like, you betrayed me and everything. So it's like, what will he do to Denbei's Amon, like, after, everything? It's like pumping him for information. You will probably end up torturing him, sadly. And obviously for Liz, like, everything she's doing is working towards saving her mom. Even she figures it out with the private eye. It's like, the fact of the matter is, this is about saving my mom's life. Like, Ilya wasn't scared of you. You're the one that was scared. You're scared of Reddington. He found out. It's like, you have very powerful enemies. And she's like, I didn't know he was one of them, because it's like, now it's like, oh, like, she was on the point of like, oh, we're on good. It's once again, it's like, I think she believed the whole, oh, we're kind of on the same side, even though you're kind of doing stuff behind her back, doing stuff behind his back and everything. But once again, it's a justification of, I'm doing this all for my mom, because, I mean, to be fair, he still won't even admit that it was Katarina that died, that the woman is in fact Liz's mom. But that's the thing. Liz hasn't put it together that it is her mom behind Denbei's mom's being kidnapped. But it's like, if she finds out, will she be okay with it? Because yes, it's all about your mom trying to save herself, sure, but the fact that she's going through such a way to go after someone who has no direct ties, we're talking about someone that's innocent in all of this, kidnapping them, potentially torturing them for information. Is she really going to be okay with that, when it's like, whoa, but he had nothing to do with this? Like, if it was someone from Reddington, I wouldn't be okay with it, but at least it'd be justified. This is an innocent person, but for her, it's like, whatever it takes to save my life and everything. I'm sure there'll be her justification for it. But Liz did learn from the private eye that basically there's a what was the word exactly? Wasn't it some kind of archive or something that Frank was mumbling? Well, Ilya was mumbling about, like So it's like whatever information he has is in this archive. So is the so he knows this information that probably only exists in that archive. So Ilya can probably find is probably has the only means of getting to archive if you can't get the information directly from him. So, I mean, that's what I'm wondering. Like, is the information specifically that Ilya knows where the archive is, and the archive is what she really needs, or does he have the information that's also in the archive, but it's like you need either Ilya or the archive? It probably, either way, it's going to come down to that archive. I think it's probably more so the former, that he doesn't know what it is she needs exactly, but he knows where the archive is that lets her know about whatever this is. But it's like, once again, it's about saving her life. And obviously she's still keeping Liz in the dark about certain details, because even Liz is like, she didn't tell me what's up, but only that her life depended on it and stuff like that. So very complicated situation, because at the very end, Reddington's friend came and she basically got a fingerprint connected to somebody, but it's, so it's like, it must have been someone that Katerina hired. But then Dembe comes back around and Reddington's on the ground. Like, obviously, like whatever illness he has is ramping up. Like I said, it's something that's always been in the background that we've never really dived into, and this might be our chance to really dive into it, because like he'll probably call Liz up and let her know what's going on. So Reddington might be in a bad way, and it's interesting that this would happen at a time where all of this is going down. So that's not the only interesting thing that was set up too. We had Wrestler's brother pop up. Like I thought maybe we were done with that, just because it wasn't it last episode. It might have been the episode before last. That whole situation, I was like, oh, maybe that's not going to come back up. Oh, no, it super does come back up. And also, because I saw his name in the intros, I was like, is that Anthony Michael Hall? I was like, am I confusing him with someone else? And then when the episode ends, I was like, oh, no, it's totally the person I was thinking of. I think I kind of best know him from, I guess, Dead Zone. Also, he was in, wasn't he, in the second or maybe the last season of Psych? Because he took over as the captain at the police station, if I remember correctly. But Dead Zone is kind of, I think, one of the things he's best known for, maybe potentially. I've never watched the show. I've always been interested in it. I've just never seen it. But he was a lead in that. Because I think that's based on a movie the same name. I think it's like an adaptation of that movie, which might also be a book. Because I know the movie had Christopher Walken in it. Maybe it's the same. I know there's definitely a Dead Zone movie. I want to say that's the same property. I don't think that's different. Regardless, tangents, sorry. But I was like, holy crap, Anthony Michael Hall is playing your brother. That's cool. But it turns out it's because someone is digging up a specific area, and it's like all the stuff that's underneath it, bro. And then like Wrestler's got, so it's like, wow, Wrestler. So there's stuff deep from your past. I mean, Wrestler's already had plenty of skeletons in his closet, or rather buried, and in some cases, destroyed in a vat of acid type of situation. Yeah, let's not forget. Over the course of this series, so it's like, oh, so maybe this stuff FBI, maybe this isn't necessarily stuff connected to him. It might be connected to his brother, but he's complicit because he helped bury said bodies. I mean, we're saying bodies, but it might be something else is buried underneath. But being as stressed as they are, you'd assume it'd be a body type of situation. So another thing in its entirety kind of set up. So I'm very interested to ultimately see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.